but it deals with this idea of longing for something that you don't have with you, or you don't have access to. So us Joburg people often think of the Cape as like this la-la land where people, you know, do things in nature on weekends, which they do, and have access to like landscape and all kinds of things that in Joburg you don't have access to. And there's a kind of nostalgia that develops, and there's a kind of envy that develops. And the works are about that. I haven't taken any of, aside from that, there was a hike that I went on and I snapped some stuff on my cell phone and then compiled an image that's made up of many different walks through the Magaliesberg. And this, I would say, is the most authentic experience of walking in the landscape that I have. And the rest are sort of nostalgic, when I say nostalgic, almost like future nostalgia, of experiences that I'm not having. They're taken from hiking websites and travel brochures and all kinds of things, and I'll look for the kind of attractive mountains and draw those and deconstruct this the surface and work it with solvents, and then I rework it, and so this kind of nostalgic atmosphere starts to develop. So what was once a very, I call it when I teach, I call it matric art, good matric art. Good matric art is supposed to look neatness. Everything must be like drawn perfectly, and they kind of look like good matric art in the beginning, and then I start to undo that, and I think the undoing is a bit like our expectations of how things should be, and then how those things are undone through whatever millions of variables that come our way, you know, in any given experience. Whatever we imagine something to be is never quite what it is in the actual experience of it, because there's so many unforeseen factors. Yeah, so also I was explaining earlier that drawing for me is not something that it's not really something that I do, it's something that I am. And this started happening when I was 2 or 3 years old. It was a way of emotionally regulating myself. And I remember going through, you know, typical childhood experiences, feeling quite detached from the world of language and strategy. And I remember sitting so often in classes thinking, why are these people speaking in code? And for some reason, drawing offered to me like a way to regulate myself emotionally, and it also is a kind of communicative language. It's something that I think amongst artists we almost speak to each other like this, and we can almost read each other like this. So yeah, that's why I draw. It's actually part of a therapy, I guess. Yeah, and then the other thing is just in terms of the scale of the work. This fairly small in what I've done before. I've done works that are possibly nearly the size of this wall, 3 panels and taller. And this, the idea behind that is not, they're not kind of, it's not megalomaniacal flexing. It's about...
It's not machismo.
Yeah, it's not machismo.
No.
It's about the experience of being inside of a landscape. And I think it was Mark Rothko who used to say, painting one has to feel like you can immerse yourself inside the painting. And it does frustrate me, and I think it frustrates a lot of artists that we've also got to work for a market. So what happens is that works start, as your career goes along, so your works start getting smaller, and then somewhere in mid-career, you're almost working according to what the market dictates, and there's a loss of what the experience means, and I think there are some, I think that's not to say that small works aren't beautiful. Small works are great, but there was a point in 2015 where I realized I had worked a little bit with Everard Reed, and the directive of those gallerists would be like, oh, we need, why don't you do a bunch of works that are about this size and about that size, and it's almost like made to order. And I remember the sensation of feeling like I was diminishing with as the work was